The history of the refrigerator is a fascinating journey from ancient cooling methods to modern electric appliances. Long before electricity, civilizations like the Persians and Romans used natural methods, such as underground storage, snow pits, and ice houses, to preserve food. The concept of artificial refrigeration began in 1748 when Scottish scientist William Cullen demonstrated the evaporated cooling system, though it wasn't practical at the time. In 1834, American inventor Jacob Perkins built the first working vapor compression refrigeration system, laying the foundation for modern cooling. Throughout the 19th century, inventors like James Harrison and Ferdinand Correa refined refrigeration technology. The first electric refrigerator for home use appeared in 1913, but it wasn't until General Electric introduced the monitor top model in 1927 that refrigerators became more accessible to households. These early models used toxic gases like ammonia and sulfur dioxide, which were later replaced by safer refrigerants like Freon in the 1930s. The post-World War II era saw refrigerators become a staple in homes, with innovations like freezer compartments, automatic defrosting, and energy-efficient designs. By the late 20th century, refrigerators evolved into sleek, multifunctional appliances, and today's smart fridges even feature touchscreens, cameras, and internet connectivity. From preserving food with ice blocks to managing groceries with AI, the refrigerator has transformed how we store and consume food, becoming an essential part of daily life. For most of history, people didn't use alarm clocks to wake up. Instead, they woke naturally with the sunrise, heard roosters crowing, church bells ringing, or were even visited by people called knocker-uppers, who tapped on windows to wake them. But over time, people wanted a more reliable way to wake up on time, which led to many creative inventions and eventually the modern alarm clock. Long ago, ancient Greeks made clever water clocks. In ancient China, people used candle clocks. When the candle burned down to a certain point, it released a string that dropped a weight onto a tray, making noise. As clockmaking got better in Europe between the 1300s and 1500s, inventors added alarm features to tower clocks and smaller home clocks called lantern clocks. These used gears and hammers to ring bells at set times. But these clocks were expensive and only rich people had them. For many years, people still used human help. In Britain during the Industrial Revolution, knocker-uppers walked from house to house with long sticks, or even shot peas at windows, to wake up workers early for factory shifts. The first official patent for a mechanical alarm clock was given in 1847 to a Frenchman named Antoine Redier. But it wasn't until the late 1800s and early 1900s that alarm clocks were mass-produced and became affordable for regular people. Companies like West Clocks and Seth Thomas made loud, wind-up clocks that many households used. In the 1900s, more types of alarm clocks appeared. Electric ones came in the 1930s, then radio alarms let people wake up to music or the news. Later, digital clocks became popular and easy to use. Today, most people simply set an alarm on their smartphone, which can wake them up with sounds, music, or vibrations. From water drops to phone rings, alarm clocks have come a long way to make sure we start each day, whether we're ready or not. The invention of the potato chip is attributed to George Crumb, who was born George Speck in 1824. In 1853, he was a cook at Moon's Lake House restaurant in Saratoga Springs, New York. A customer sent back his order of fried potatoes, stating that the slices were too thick and not crispy enough. Supposedly, Crumb cut thinner slices of potato, but the customer was still dissatisfied. Frustrated by the constant complaints, Crumb supposedly decided to teach the customer a lesson. Crumb decided to cut thin slices of potato and fry them in oil until they became crispy discs that couldn't be eaten with a fork, then salted them excessively. The customer, instead of being irritated, was delighted by the crunchy potatoes. Other restaurant patrons then requested the dish, leading the establishment to offer its special Saratoga chips. Crumb later opened his own restaurant and featured the chips, which gradually became popular in New England restaurants. In the late 1800s, entrepreneurs such as William Tappenden began founding companies to make potato chips available in grocery stores. Originally, the chips sold in stores were kept in big barrels or glass containers and were weighed and measured from there. By the time customers got to the bottom of the barrel, the chips were usually stale and broken. In 1926, California businesswoman Laura Scudder, who was also a trained nurse and lawyer, developed a method to fuse two pieces of waxed paper together into a bag to store the chips. This eventually led to the production of cellophane bags and then glassine bags to keep the chips fresh. Also in the 1920s, Both the mechanical potato peeler and the continuous fryer were invented, allowing for the processing of larger quantities of chips. Chewing gum is a sweet product made from sticky natural materials like chicle, and people chew it mainly for its taste. For thousands of years, people around the Mediterranean have chewed the sweet resin from the mastic tree. This was done to clean teeth and freshen breath, which is why the tree got its name. In North America, early settlers from New England saw Native Americans chewing resin from spruce trees for the same reasons and adopted the habit. In the 1800s, business people thought chicle could be used like rubber. In 1869, Antonio Lopez de Santa Anna, a former president of Mexico living in exile in New York, hoped to use chicle to make tires and fund his return to power. He hired an inventor named Thomas Adams to figure out how to turn chicle into something useful through a process called vulcanization. When the experiments didn't work, Adams was left with a big amount of chicle. To avoid wasting his supply, Adams started selling small pieces of plain chicle to drugstores as an alternative to sweetened wax, which had replaced spruce resin as a chewable material. In 1871, Adams patented his chewing gum, and once he added flavors, it became extremely popular, even though it wasn't the first gum ever patented in the US. After World War II, manufacturers stopped using chicle and started making gum with waxes, plastics, and synthetic rubber instead. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on any new videos.